Today's video is going to be about using your camera or your smartphone in videography and photography. They're wonderful tools. Let's get to it. Okay, let's start off this discussion with talking about the pros of using your camera. There's a lot of things that goes on here with the lens and the camera body, and they work together. They work in conjunction with each other. Another important thing when using your camera over a smartphone is the fact that if you go into a photography shoot or a video shoot, they're going to want to see a piece of equipment like this. This has some prestige to it that the smartphone doesn't have. Not to mention also, there's so many accessories. There's so many things you can add to this camera body to accentuate your imagery and accentuate your videography that you just at this point can't add to the smartphone. But let's talk about the things that the smartphone can do, because they're wonderful pieces of technology and they're doing more and more all the time. So let's start talking about the smartphone. Okay, now let's talk about the smartphone. And let's talk about the number one thing right off the bat. If cost matters, you probably already have this. You may or may not have things like this available. So use what you have. You can take wonderful photography with these. This is a Samsung Android phone. And by today's standards, this is an antiquated one. This is a version 9. And right now, Samsung has a version 25 out. That being said, I shoot my product photography with this. It's so much simpler, so much easier to take my photograph than moving all my equipment around. So even today, I'm still using this. The phones today are increasingly more and more technologically advanced, and they're doing more and more wonderful things. You'll see videos of people that have done these things with these phones that is just amazing. Now, I have become a Samsung fan. This might be a little controversial for a lot of people, but I'm very cost efficient with things that I purchase. I try not to get into subscription things for software. Once again, with the Samsung phone, I had decided to go that route only because I was an iPhone user and I didn't like the fact that as the upgrades came in, my phone started running slower and slower, and to the point where my phone was no longer supported. And I was at that point asked to purchase a new phone, and I didn't like the idea of buying something and it eventually became useless because of upgrades. Once again, Samsung 9, still working, still does everything I want it to do, even though the Samsung 25 is out. So that might be a little controversial for people. The iPhone is a wonderful piece of technology. The videography and the photography in it is top notch, but I just didn't like the idea that I was forced into purchasing newer equipment because the older equipment stopped working. Now, let's go into some of these cameras. Big selling point for these cameras right now, because they are advancing, is the fact that the sensor size in the camera is getting larger and larger. At one point, these sensors were tiny. Samsung, their Ultra series right now, from the S20 to the S23, has a moderately decent sized sensor in it. The iPhone Pro Max series from 11 to 23, gradually from the 11 to the 23, the sensor size has gotten larger and larger. There are 3 versions of cameras: the Oppo, the Honor, and the Xiaomi camera. And when I'm saying Xiaomi, it's Xiaomi. These cameras have a 1-inch sensor that is in the camera. Just because the sensor's bigger doesn't mean it's taking better photography. Plus, sensor size is kind of done during the scientific measurement thing. It's not actually a 1-inch by 1-inch sensor. In reality, the sensor is closer to being a 1/2 inch by 3/8 of an inch. But because of this formula they have to figure out sensor size, it is considered a 1 by 1 sensor. Once again, just because the sensor is larger doesn't mean it takes bigger pictures. It does mean it will bring in more light, so it will work better in low light conditions. The pixels have now gotten bigger, so more light can be brought in. The smartphone cameras are wonderful cameras, and the technology that they use to produce the imagery is amazing, and it's getting better and better. So you have a lot of wonderful capabilities with that camera. As I probably mentioned before, there is a prestige thing. If somebody hires a photographer, they really at this point don't want to see them walk in with a smartphone. They want to have this gear come in to take their photography. So that's something else to consider. But for right now, use the smartphone. It's a wonderful piece of technology. The science behind it and how things work is getting better and better all the time. And it's just very cost efficient. It's easy to go around with your cell phone if you're using it for a phone and a computer and access to the internet anyway. And it's also taking great photography. You'll see a lot of YouTube videos that people are shooting themselves. They have their smartphone on a gimbal and they're walking around talking about things. Wonderful, wonderful videography from these phones. So it's there. Use it. You don't have to go out and buy all this fancy camera gear. If you have a smartphone that has video capabilities, that's a wonderful tool. Get used to using all those things. And then if you want to go into other aspects where you need this bigger gear, that's great too. They still do things that that smartphone isn't going to do. Well, once again, thanks for stopping by. I would appreciate it if you would subscribe, like, or share this channel if it is giving you some information that's been helpful. And also think about this too. Leave something in the comments if you have a question. I will answer that question. And at this point, if it looks like it's a great topic for other people to know, because if you have a question, other people have that same question also. So that might be a great topic for me to make a video on. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.